This week on the special of the week, Andy Gibb.
Love is higher than a mountain. Love is thicker than water.
Andy Gibb. He's packed more living into his first 2 decades than most people do in a lifetime.
They're burying me tomorrow. And yet, it is weird. I suppose I must really remember, because 20 years old and 3 number ones is a lot.
Andy Gibb, this week on the special of the week. I'm Robert W. Morgan. This week on the special of the week, the man who wants to be your everything, Andy Gibb. Andy's a true overnight success, releasing 6 million-selling records during his first year as a recording artist. But because it all happened so fast for him, Andy's had to pay his dues after becoming a star, struggling to create his own identity. Andy Gibb, the Bee Gees' little brother, grows up. This week on the special of the week.
I can relate to how things have changed, obviously, very differently. I still think back to the early days. I mean, when obviously all this wasn't happening at all. And it seemed like a big step, but I'm glad I can remember it. I'm glad I can still think about it and relate to it. Because if I couldn't relate at all, that would be a problem for me. I mean, it would mean that, as far as my head's concerned, the business has changed me drastically, that I can't relate to what I was doing before I hit record. So, I still pretty much don't want to forget about the times before.
Andy Gibbs packed more living into his first 2 decades than most people do in a lifetime. Growing up with brothers Barry, Morris, and Robin, the Bee Gees, Andy had a ringside view of the high-flying world of rock and roll. He also had high-flying parents. They were never reluctant to pull up stakes, pick up Andy, and move to another part of the world whenever the mood struck them. So when Andy Gibb says he feels older than his years, he's not boasting.
They're burying me tomorrow. No, I still feel pretty much, as far as the age goes, the same about it as I did before, because everything has happened in a short time. And so, as much as, I get tired sometimes and have done quite a few things, I don't know, I can handle it, and yet it is weird. I suppose I must really remember, because 20 years old and 3 number ones is a lot. And I'm just worried about the 10 years or all those years ahead till I'm 30. Sometimes it's a strange thought, thinking, if all this can happen, and some days you get depressed and think that it's been a long year, what's it going to be like after having to fight through 10 years? I know that success and everything that's happening now is great, and it seems like it's going to last forever as it's happening to you now. But it's amazing how short that space and time was when you look back on it, and how quick things can turn around.
It is amazing how fast it's all happened for Andy Gibb. During his first year as a recording artist, every record he released, singles and albums, sold at least 1 million copies. At one point, he joined his brothers in occupying 4 of the top 5 positions on the music charts. That's the kind of sudden stardom aspiring musicians dream about. But for Andy Gibb, there were days when the sensation of being an overnight sensation was more than he could handle.
Yeah, I had a couple of days, and I thought, gee, you've got to be careful. You touch the edge, and you see it all. And I went to Europe, and it really gets me, probably easier than a lot of people. I don't know why. I'm just having a lot of years struggling in the business of non-stop touring and everything else. So I went out to do a promotional tour of Europe, where I'm not really big there, nothing like America. To go out there, naturally, they're really ready to put me to work. And we had 5 weeks promotion, and for 3 weeks we were going from like 6 in the morning till 2 in the morning. Not eating, I wasn't getting all my meals, I was being pulled away, doing interviews over dinners, not being able to finish my meals. I broke down. It certainly wasn't mental, it was a physical sort of collapse I had in Amsterdam. And we had to cut the tour off 3 weeks short and bring me home to Miami. And that was like a month ago. So that point of it, I'm just, you get very tired very quickly now. Having to constantly talk about being successful until you get used to that, I suppose, is a different thing for a person.
Fortunately, when Andy came back from Europe on the verge of collapse, he could collapse into the arms of his family. Miami is home for the Bee Gees and their parents, Hugh and Barbara Gibb. Andy's professional family also lives there, including record producers Albie Galutin and Carl Richardson. And while most young men his age tend to avoid their families, Andy thrives on being close to his.
I want to involve them in things and show them things that are happening. Because even though they've been through it for many years, sort of for them it's like finishing it all off.
I'm Robert W. Morgan with Andy Gibb on the special of the week. By the time Andy was born in Manchester, England, there was already so much music in the Gibb household, it's surprising his first words weren't the lyrics to Children of the World. Not only were his brothers singing in local theaters during Saturday matinees, but his father, Hugh Gibb, was just winding up his career as a band leader. According to Mr. Gibb, times were much harder for young musicians back when he was a boy.
And I was the oddball in my family because I like music. And the attitude was it'd never do you any good. The main theme there was go to work, have a steady job, and bring your wages home every weekend. And to sidetrack from that, it wasn't right in their eyes. To be a musician is like the old days, you know, when they were considered vagabonds. And that's all I ever wanted to do. I was the oddball. I'm the only one, I think, that the boys could have got anything from. Nobody could foresee what was going to happen.
The Gibbs had moved around so frequently when Hugh was a band leader that after a few months in Manchester, they soon got the itch to travel once more. This time to Australia. Mr. and Mrs. Gibb remember it well.
I was having the baby, and we had to wait until we got our papers to go on the ship, you see. But I think Andy was just...
He was about 5 months old when we arrived in Australia, wasn't
6 months. It was when we arrived in September. He
arrived in September.
We got our shipping orders and everything about the end of March. Andy was just about a month old, and we shipped out.
Sometimes you have to wait 2 years. We got it in 6 weeks.
On the first Monday in August, we left.
Because they say
That was about 3 months.
don't dispose of your property until you know what you're doing, you know. And out of the blue, we got a note.
No, we emigrated.
6 weeks and we're off. Amazing.
It was amazing. While in Australia, Hugh and Barbara Gibb saw their 3 oldest sons grow up to become that continent's biggest pop stars. But the Bee Gees soon outgrew Australia, so the Gibbs packed their bags again and went home to conquer England. Considering that Andy had left when he was only a month old, it's remarkable how much he missed his homeland.
That was really funny. We came by boat, and I was told that when we came off, I went running down the gangplank, 9 years old, you know. And I left at 5 months old, so I hadn't ever seen it. And I was running down there, and like I kissed the ground and everything. England, England, you know. My brothers all kissed the ground, you know. After a few months, we wondered why, but we did it.
Once they were back in Britain, the Bee Gees wasted no time. In rapid-fire succession, they were signed by Robert Stigwood, recorded their first worldwide hit, New York Mining Disaster, and were full-fledged superstars. Most kids might have found it strange to see their older brothers hounded by screaming fans, but not Andy Gibb.
Well, it didn't change my life that much because I was only, as I say, 10 years old. And I mean, I knew they were in the business, and because I'd always known they were in the business, not being anything extra special to me. And at 10 years old, you don't think of the show business, you don't think glittery, you don't think that they have 400 or 500 kids outside the front door. Is it because you're big and stars? I just walk in from school, past the 500 kids at the front door, go in the back door. My brothers would all be sitting watching television with the curtains drawn, girls banging on the windows, and that was their whole life, you know. I never had a good day at school, ever in my life, I don't think. And that's why I left school. Just on nearly my 13th birthday, I'd have my problems there. And that was a bit of a hassle. I mean, I get kids there. I'd do anything to get in normally with them. Any game, and if I do something outstanding in that game or sport, it was always, you think you're great, don't you? Just because you're the Bee Gees' brother. You think you can do that fabulously, you know? To have that for quite a few years thrown at you, I mean, it just got to me so bad in the end, I couldn't handle it anymore. I had to leave it.
Growing up in the shadow of his famous brothers, it would have been understandable for Andy to resent Barry, Morris, and Robin. But instead of sibling rivalry, there was nothing but sibling revelry.
Everyone said that most people in that position would say, God, I mean, my brothers are responsible for all this, you know, damn them in the end. But no, not once ever did I ever think that. I always decided to take everything myself and write it myself and not consider it as their fault. Naturally, I was always going to be related to them in any conversation or anything. So that's never bugged me, really.